here to make a new type of news. New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's October 27th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yoon, and you're watching News Generation, where we discuss the latest issues concerning our generation. Joining me in the studio is Niall Song. Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s and share their own insights. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Asia's once second richest person, Hui Kaiyan, has lost 98% of his wealth. Hui started one of China's biggest and now most indebted real estate companies, Evergrande. But in 2021, the company was officially labeled a defaulter, with Hui failing to repay $327 billion in liabilities. And moving on to our next story. The United States is also considering whether to designate November 22nd as Kimchi Day. Since 2020, Korea has set aside this date as a legal anniversary to commemorate the nutritional value and tradition behind our soul food kimchi. Some states like California, Virginia, and New York have already declared their own kimchi days in the past. But for the first time ever, the U.S. House Oversight Committee is planning to adopt a resolution which would make Kimchi Day recognized on a federal level. And last but not least, recently we've seen many Korean celebrities make headlines over illegal drug use. The latest star to join this list includes K-pop idol G-Dragon. Police have booked the leader of boy band Big Bang, who was found to have illegally smoked marijuana back in 2011, but at the time he hadn't been formally prosecuted. Now we're still waiting for the police to give more details on the case, but netizens have compiled videos of G-Dragon's latest interview clips and compared them to actor Yoo In, who was also indicted for habitually using illegal drugs, and many compared their behavior patterns, pointing to how both looked very anxious and couldn't keep still. So here in the studio, what do you guys think about this news story and how we're seeing celebrities constantly hit headlines over illegal drug use?
Well, if I have to be 100% honest, I'm not really surprised about this type of behavior. This is not just in Korea, this happens everywhere, and we see it on a global scale. And to be honest with you, when they are that famous, they live the lavish lifestyle that they lead, they mix with those groups who do the same thing. And therefore, I guess it could be very tempting. A lot of people use drugs as a way to alleviate through the stress that they're going through. And for example, being an entertainer, being an entrepreneur or whatever, takes a lot of energy out of you, and there just needs to be an output for that. And it shouldn't be drugs, of course. When you're a celebrity, you have the responsibility of being a good person, to be a good role model. But unfortunately, we're seeing this too much these days in Korea. You know, compared to other countries, you know, Korea itself is supposed to be a no drug zone, right? Or no drug country. But you'd be pretty naive to think that there wouldn't be in here in Korea, just because of the way the world works at the moment. And yes, we don't want them here, but there's nothing we can do at the moment.
I think we need better regulations, because Korea was once known as the no drug zone. But as you mentioned, we're seeing so many societal cases involving even teens using drugs. And I don't think it's better that we're seeing public figures like G-Dragon, who are very influential, especially among our generation, to be taking on that path. Now, what did you think about this news story?
I feel like I've mentioned multiple times that I am a fan of G-Dragon.
Exactly.
And in 2011, I did see what was happening, and it was kind of disappointing, but I think I almost kind of lied to myself saying, it's okay. But it really isn't. We can't stand to defend him if he comes out guilty once more. And I know there's different types of drugs and what kind of effects that it has on your body, like the severity, it's different. But it's illegal to use it as an entertainment in Korea, and I don't think there should be an exception for anybody. And I'm not saying that, you know, he should be the only person setting the example for the entire nation, but no Korean should also be taking drug abuse lightly, whether they're famous or not.
Yeah, and whether that's in Korea or abroad, smoking or doing anything related to legal narcotics is illegal if you're a Korean national, especially here in Korea. And that was our news feed for this Friday. And speaking of it being a Friday, it means it's time to introduce the hottest places to enjoy autumn here in Seoul. And today we're going to take you around the best street markets, traditional markets, and food markets here in the capital. So first off, here in the studio, now why don't you tell our viewers why these markets are trending, especially among our generation?
Right. I mean, I think these marketplaces used to be kind of older people
Yeah.
gathering, but I want to talk about Namdaemun first. Now, the reason they become really popular amongst millennials and Gen Z is because of the liquor stores. Apparently, the average age of those visiting the liquor stores in Namdaemun have dropped in the past few years due to the prices being a little cheaper than the bigger chain stores. I feel like I shouldn't even be like saying this on air
Right.
so that not that many people know, but yes, that's what it is. But already it's so popular that you go and you look for a specific bottle and it might not be there. And we actually even talked about whiskey and how popular it became amongst the younger generation. Rather than drinking, you know, kind of soju, they would go for a few glasses of whiskey instead. And so that's one of the reasons why it became popular in the younger generation.
I completely agree. I think in the past, many people thought that these traditional markets would be refined only to the elderly, like seniors, because they have a lot of traditional food, clothes, vintage clothes, that is. But now we're seeing a lot more youngsters, as you mentioned, Namdaemun, and you will explain that in depth a little later. But now we're seeing a lot of trending drinks, clothes, food that really resonate with our generation. Would you like to add on?
Yeah, you're right, you're both right about that. I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of the young generation now are going back to the old days where, you know, clothes, as you said, antiques, items, whatever, are becoming now back in fashion. And I think these are the only, or these places that we'll talk about are the only places where you can really get them at an affordable price and more of a, like a steal, if anything, because you know, if you try and get the, let's say a Polaroid camera, an old school Polaroid camera online, you're probably going to be paying a lot of money. So you just got to go to these little areas that sell all these little trinkets and old items. Yeah, knickknacks. And I think this is great, to be honest with you. I mean, vintage always comes back.
Yes.
It always comes back. That's the thing about vintage. And these sort of, I was going to say restaurants, but these sort of markets, sorry, are the place to buy them. And, you know, I've walked around them and I wish I had the style to be a bit more vintage and like sip a whiskey, but it just doesn't suit me. But yeah, that's what the younger generation are into these days. I think vintage is now coming back again.
Exactly. And we've been doing these, we've been dedicating the past Fridays to introduce some of the best places to visit during autumn time. And I think the biggest advantage of these markets is they're in an open space. So you can enjoy the autumn breeze, enjoy some good food, and see the tradition of Seoul and like our country while being in a bustling capital city. Now let's introduce all these different types of markets people can go through, starting with the most iconic and oldest ones you mentioned very briefly, Nile. So walk us through Namdaemun and Dongdaemun.
Right. So the first one that I was mentioning about the cool liquor shops that you guys can visit if you're in Korea. So Namdaemun is located in the center of Seoul, and so it's easy access. Even for tourists, it's great to visit. It attracts more than 400,000 foreign tourists in one day. That's crazy. And they're both quite large, Namdaemun and Dongdaemun. It has more than 1,700 different types of items, whether it be little trinkets, like Walter was saying, food, and different shopping materials. They're also famous for their 갈치조림 and 칼국수, which are delicious, especially if you visit during autumn. Imagine a really hot bowl of 칼국수. Ooh. Dongdaemun, as Walter is going to talk about later on as well, it's the center of Korea's fashion events. It's where all the fashion people join in, and there's giant buildings like Millennials, Dusan Tower, and there's hundreds of little clothes shops inside them, up the entire building. And when I was in middle school and I visited Korea, just coming back, this was the place to go to buy all of the clothes that I needed for the next few years. You can shop 24 hours in these giant buildings, so many options, but they're kind of, you know, off-brand sometimes, but really cute things. If you want accessories, shoes, clothes, this is a place to go.
And as you mentioned, the DDP, it's always a place for a lot of fashion shows to be held. We're seeing the biggest fashionistas join here, whether it depends on the season. As you're seeing on the VCR right now, I think we're seeing a lot of fashion trends up there because DDP is basically the fashion icon of Seoul.
Exactly.
And the architecture is beautiful and stuff like that.
I think, like, yes, for Dongdaemun as well, like, it's a way for people to express themselves and be a little bit out of the box when it comes to I guess the fast trends are happening at the moment that we all follow. But with Dongdaemun, a lot of people go there and they wear what I would call outlandish, but yeah, fashionable items. And I think a lot of people feel comfortable going there and showing off maybe their certain taste and flair. So if you're a person who really likes to, you know, wear well, like unique clothes or have a unique style, I think Dongdaemun would be a place where you fit straight in.
Exactly. And I think the best part I like about Dongdaemun and Namdaemun is that they're quite close by, so you can go visit them the same day. And also, as we saw in the video first, Namdaemun, there's so many places to eat, and it's one of the most iconic markets. It's one of the oldest markets in Seoul, per se. So there's a lot of kukbap streets as well. And kukbap in English, it's like soup with rice?
Soup with rice, but there's multiple types of it. You know, there's like the meat kind or even the 콩나물 kind, which is, you know, kind of plant-based.
Exactly.
So
different types of broth soups that you can enjoy. There's also a road dedicated just for like chicken broth noodles.
Yes.
닭 한 마리.
Yes.
So in each alleyway, you can see different iconic menus, and I think it'd be really nice. Like one day you can eat the chicken broth type of soup, another day you can eat beef broth soup. If you're a big foodie like myself, I would recommend for you to go to Namdaemun. But speaking of food, I would now like to introduce you guys to the best food markets in the capital, and that's Gwangjang Market. I personally love going to Gwangjang Market because it's more like easy to eat finger food, I guess. It's a lot of street food. So the word Gwangjang means to gather from afar and stay together. If you take a look at the screen, this is how it looks like. There's just so many food vendors here and a lot of iconic menus like tteokbokki, spicy fried rice cakes. I love that. And it goes along with kimbap. It's called mayak kimbap. Mayak meaning drugs, meaning it's so addictive that you keep wanting to eat it. There's also odeng, mung bean pancakes, also known as bindaetteok. Bindaetteok is a very traditional style pancake here. You just grease it in with a lot of oil. It tastes amazing with makgeolli, Korean fermented wine. And there's so many types of Korean traditional street food here that I highly recommend it as a hot attraction to visit if you're a tourist in Seoul. It's open all year round, and it's just between Dongno Samga Station and Dongdaemun Station. So after visiting some of the Seoul's other iconic places, you can definitely go here to enjoy a full meal. Another market with great food is Mangwon. It's close to Mangnidan Street and Mapo Hangang Park, making it a great place to pick up some street food before you go for a riverside picnic. Now here the most iconic menu you must try is the deep fried and braised chicken. There's also braised pig's feet, and it's different from other traditional markets because it's literally located in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So you can see like how other local Koreans live, and I think it gives off a more local vibe rather than a tourist vibe.
But it's also super young because Mangwon and Mangnidan is kind of known as the younger hip area as well. So there's kind of the new and the old merging together. It's a really cool spot to be in.
And I think I love like food markets, especially here in Korea, because of the concept of chong. There's no direct English translation for chong, but I think it's the friendly atmosphere that these food markets give because the food street vendors ask for a sample. They're like, try this, try that. And even if you buy, for instance, like a $10 worth of food, they add extra.
It's called service or service.
Exactly.
Extra little something
that
in there.
extra little bite. And I think recently on different OTT platforms like Netflix, we've seen a lot of foreigners, especially like international celebrities, visit these food markets. So definitely try it out. Walter, have you ever been to these food markets?
It was actually one of the very first places I came to as a tourist when I came back to Korea. And it was just an amazing place to be because like you, I'm a foodie and I love my food. And so the fact that you can basically walk one step and it can be a completely different store, walk another step, it can be, you can do basically just eating all these different foods down just one street. And yes, my favorite of as well was the, I guess they call it like a potato pancake, right? Yeah. But that was amazing. I could have eaten several of them, but they are deep fried in like this much oil. So it was, I had to control myself.
I feel like if you want to taste all the different types of food, at least in one of these markets, you should take at least a few days to revisit over and over and try different foods. But I mean, it can get kind of heavy because a lot of them are really greasy. So make sure you take a good walk around the neighborhood as well. It's so beautiful near there.
Also, it's just in the middle of the capital. So you can go to like a traditional palace, as we've introduced to you in previous episodes where we introduced the hottest places in Seoul during autumn. Another tip I'd like to give you as a local is because there's just so many street vendors, you might feel like which is the best one to go to.
Right.
But to be very honest with you guys, I don't know, but it tastes the same.
It all tastes good. They all taste good.
And you know what's really cool at the moment is that with the ones that we've introduced so far, they're all relatively within walking distance from each other. So if you go to Gwangjang Market, you can just go for a little walk down the Cheonggye Stream and go to Dongdaemun. I mean, it only takes like about 15 minutes or 20 minutes
Yeah.
by walking. So you get full, you go for a walk, and then you go shopping. This is seriously all within walking distance.
And I think one more market that I'd like to introduce before we go on to yours is that nearby Gwangjang, there's also this place where you can buy different like stuff for knitting wear. Like Gwangjang Market,
yeah.
you might make little candles. I used to go there all the time to like buy little things to make scarves and stuff for the winter.
Oh, I didn't know you made scarves.
This is a little TMI, by the way. But I would do that. And then once I would get hungry, I would just walk by Gwangjang Market and get food. So there's so much to enjoy and it all in walking distance. Now, Walter, would you like to take us through the last type of market we should go to?
I think we're going to go to two places where I think if you don't have a lot of money, though these places and markets have, you know, fairly cheap products, you know, there's always going to be a cheaper place and a cooler place to go to. And I'm going to introduce Dongmyo Market and Pungmul Market. Now, I'll start with Dongmyo Market because I used to live near there. I used to go there frequently. It's a flea market that sells used clothing and vintage clothing as well. So, you know, used clothing, you might not like it, but vintage clothing always looks cool.
It does.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, used clothing isn't bad anyway. It's not dirty, they cleaned it, whatever. But yes, these flea markets like sell a lot, as we can see here, a lot of old, I guess, trinkets as well as souvenirs that you could buy for your friends. If you're a tourist, for sure, this is a place to go for you to pick up that extra special present for your people back home. And since it's such a retro place, it means it's great for pictures. If you can take a good selfie here or like put up something for Instagram, this is the place to go to as well. And especially if you're into that vintage style, you could really recreate the old times because as you can see, it's not in a big mall theater or theater or whatever. It's in these small shops and they have such unique qualities to them. And I definitely think this is the sort of market I would like to go to. But another one is Pungmul Market, which is also a flea market, like a very cheap market to go to. Now this traditional market, you can check out some of the antiques, as we can see here. Look at some of those phones. I guarantee none of you know how to use those phones. I know how to use those phones. That's how old I am. But if you want to like jazz up your house a little bit, go look at some records. I know that records are coming back into fashion as well. So these are great places for those kind of people. And I know so many people who are interested in this sort of fashion now. Things that your grandparents would consider cool would go there, and now we consider cool is it's a great place to be.
Right, and towards the end of the VCR, we saw like interactive places you can enjoy. I think that's a booming thing among our generation as well.
Yeah.
Because we've never really experienced what it was like for our grandparents or parents' generation. But inside Pungmul Market, you can see like old record shops, old record shops, or like they reenacted what it would look like if you went to school during their times.
Yeah, you
like-
kind of get to be in their shoes, experience that a little, and like we were saying, it's kind of back in fashion. So not only do you just kind of get a taste of it, you bring it back home. A lot of people collect LPs now.
Right.
It's a great spot to go. And I just kind of want to go back to the whole flea market thing. Nowadays, there's a lot of vintage stores in Korea where it's secondhand, but it's kind of the more expensive vintage shops. So it's sometimes more expensive than getting regular clothes in, I don't know, a shopping mall. But these places, the flea market, that is where you get true vintage and kind of the fun of thrifting because you find things in the middle of this pile of clothes and it's cheap and
Really
it's
cheap.
cute. Yeah.
It's
I love
really
that.
cheap. And you can also negotiate the price as well. Like you could say they might ask for like $10 for one t-shirt, but then, you know, the Chong concept again, that's the thing about these markets. Like these vendors would give you 2 t-shirts for $10.
Here's 2 tips. 1, get a lot of things and then do the discount, and 2, have cash on you. That helps.
That really does help. So we've taken you through 3 different types of markets. One being traditional, like the most iconic ones, Namdaemun, Dongdaemun. Then we took you to the food markets where you can get really good traditional and street food. And the last one was really a snippet back in time. You can see what it was like in Korea 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and you can enjoy a lot of vintage and hip clothes. Now, we asked if any of our viewers had been to any of these types of markets in Korea, and if so, to share their experience with us, Take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of them had to share. Ramsey said, I traveled to Seoul, Busan, and Jeju last month, and I enjoyed the time I spent visiting the traditional market. It helps me immerse in Korean culture, and also it became a one-stop shop for all the food that I'm interested to try, ranging from yakgwa to marinated crabs. Jiao Wei-ki said Koreans should be able to bring their markets to other countries. In New Zealand, we have Wang Market that sells all kinds of stuff from Korea. Charles Chang says, it's great, but so many tourists. It's almost become a tourist attraction and not a local authentic market, but the food is amazing. So it's great to find out that our viewers who've actually visited Korea have gone to all these markets, and I completely agree. I think it'd be a great chance for Korea, with the Hallyu wave and K-food wave booming across the world, to send its markets abroad, especially as we mentioned in the news feed, we're seeing Kimchi Day potentially becoming a federal holiday in the United States as well. Now, as a final note, anything you guys would like to share to our viewers before they visit any of the places we've recommended today?
Oh man, I feel like because we're doing the series of where you should visit during autumn, if you guys are coming to Korea during autumn, really know what you want. There's so much to see, even just within Seoul. Of course, there's so much other things to see, like going to Gapyeong, maybe Busan. But if you're staying in Korea, really mark out your priorities. If it's food, definitely visit Gwangjang-Sijang. If it's shopping, figure out what kind of shopping you want to do. And I feel like you will have a jam-packed week of food and fun and shopping.
Yes. What about you, Walter?
Yeah, I agree with Nael, but I would also say that also go into these markets with an open mind. I think that, Gwangjang Market is a great place for you to try new food. And if you're really hesitant to try, let's say, raw sliced beef or anything like that, just push yourself. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised, because it's now one of my favorite Korean dishes. Yes, for me, if I go to those vintage markets where there's clothes or antiques, I don't go in there with a specific view of like what I want to buy as I would in a department store. I go in there, and if it's something I like, I buy it. And to be honest with you, that's a much more enjoyable way to buy clothes, when you get surprised by what you see. So, and I'm sure if you go to those markets, you'll be very surprised.
And I think my tip for you, if you decide to rent a car, maybe not take your car towards these markets. Not good parking space there. Use the subway. And as we've mentioned before, Korea has one of the best public transportation methods in the world, so might as well. And as we mentioned before, it's all walking distance. So make sure to have a blast once you're in Korea during the autumn season, hopefully at these markets we've introduced to you. In the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Niall Song, no problem, and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next week. We are News Generation.